From insulted to empowered. My journey with a difficult mother-in-law. I secretly learned my fiancé's language after his mother kept insulting me and called me unfit. Then, I used it in my wedding speech to call her out in front of everyone. I'm engaged to a wonderful man. He's not from around here originally. He came to this country to go to college, and that's where we met. We were in the same program. He's honestly the kindest, most caring person I know. He always treats me with so much love and respect. I really couldn't ask for a better partner. We get along great and things are usually pretty easy between us. I am head over heels for him. The problem, and it's a pretty big one, is his mother. From the very start, it's been obvious that she just doesn't like me. I have tried to be nice and respectful. I've tried to get to know her, but nothing seems to work. I think, and my fiancé agrees, that it's because I'm white. His mom really wanted him to marry someone from their home country. It's not just that she disapproves, though. She actively makes me feel unwelcome, which is really hard. It puts a strain on things. Even though my fiancé and I are happy, it's like this constant shadow over our relationship. The first time I met his parents was, well, a disaster. We went over to their house for dinner. From the moment I walked in, his mother completely ignored me. I tried to say hello and be polite, but she just wouldn't acknowledge me. It was like I wasn't even there. My fiancé tried his best to include me in the conversation, but his mother refused to engage with me at all. She spent the entire evening speaking only in her native language to her son and husband, even though I knew she spoke English. It made me feel incredibly awkward and out of place. My fiancé, and even his father, seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation. Dinner itself was incredibly quiet and tense. I felt like I was intruding on a private family moment, even though I was supposed to be a guest. It wasn't just being left out of the conversation. I felt physically separated from them at the table. To make it even worse, when I reached for one of the dishes, she actually grabbed it away and served her husband and son first, making sure I was the last one to get anything. My fiancé was absolutely mortified. He apologized over and over again on the way home. He kept saying how unacceptable her behavior was, and that he was so sorry I had to experience that. He promised me that if things didn't improve, he would limit our contact with her. He didn't even wait for me to say anything. He just started apologizing and defending me right away. It was clear he was just as upset about it as I was, maybe even more. The whole meeting was just awful, and it gave me a pretty clear idea of what I was in for. Of course, there were other times I had to see his mother. Even after that first terrible meeting, it was his birthday and he really wanted to celebrate with his family, and he wanted me there too. I get that he loves his family. Each time, I found myself battling with myself. I want to be there for my partner, but I am scared and worried to go. I was hoping maybe things would be better, but she was just as cold and indifferent as before. It became a pattern. She would point at my hair, my face, or my clothes and make comments in her native language, and then laugh. It was obvious she was making fun of me. One time, she pointed at my hair and said something about it looking like a bird's nest and asked very loudly if I even knew how to take care of myself, and then she just laughed. My fiancé got really defensive and started arguing with her, but when I asked him what she was saying, he just brushed it off and tried to change the subject. He said his mom had made a comment about my large nose and very pale skin. It was clear he didn't want to repeat the mean things she was saying. I felt like I was not only being excluded but also actively picked on, and it was incredibly hurtful. It's not like I'm some terrible person. I honestly think I'm a pretty good catch. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm considered attractive. I was valedictorian of my college class, and I actually have a higher paying job than my fiancé. It's not about the money, but it shows I'm responsible and hardworking. We split all our expenses. I give him thoughtful gifts, and I've even been learning to cook his favorite dishes from his home country. I am trying my very best to show my commitment to him. I also actively try to make our home life easier. I take care of a lot of the chores and errands just to show him that I'm a partner in all things, not just the fun stuff. I really tried to win his mother over too. I bought Christmas gifts for both her and his father. I put a lot of thought into them, trying to find things they might actually like, but we were never even invited to their Christmas celebrations. His father is always very kind to me, which I appreciate. It's really just his mother who's the problem. It feels like no matter what I do, it's never enough. I remember giving his mom a really nice scarf, and she just looked at it with this disgusted look and threw it aside. Later, I overheard her telling someone else that it was cheap and ugly, just like my taste. It's things like that that really get to me. It's not just at his parents' house either. At bigger family events like parties or weddings, she does the same thing. She'll glare at me from across the room, then whisper to other relatives, pointing at me and talking about me. If I try to approach her, she just ignores me and walks away. It's so obvious and so humiliating. It's not like she's hiding it. She makes it a point to physically turn away from me, making it very clear to everyone around that she's rejecting me. I saw her at one party praising another relative's daughter-in-law, saying how respectful and traditional she was, all while completely ignoring me. It was like she was trying to make a point to show everyone how much better this other woman was than me, simply because she was from the same country as them. What's even more frustrating is that I know she speaks English perfectly well. She's a kindergarten teacher, so she has to. She deliberately chooses to speak in her native language to exclude me, to make me feel like an outsider in my own fiancé's family. It's like she uses the language barrier as a weapon. I realized that if I really wanted to connect with my fiancé on a deeper level, I needed to understand his culture better, and that included his language. I wanted to be able to share that part of his life with him. I thought it would bring us closer. I decided I was going to learn his native language. I planned to keep it a secret from him. I imagined surprising him one day by having a full conversation with him in his language. I wanted to see the look on his face. I wanted to show him how much I cared. So, I really committed myself to learning the language. I spent about 5 months working at it almost every day. I found all sorts of resources online, YouTube videos, language learning apps, everything I could find. I practiced speaking out loud, trying to get the pronunciation right. I really focused on being able to hold a conversation, not just learning a few words here and there. My main motivation was to connect with my fiancé and surprise him. But if I'm being completely honest, there was a part of me that also wanted to understand exactly what his mother was saying about me. And while I started to understand, it wasn't easy. But after a few months, I could pick up more and more of what she was saying during those family gatherings or when she thought I wasn't listening. I made sure to pretend I still didn't understand anything around her. I just kept quiet and listened. And what I heard, it was devastating. It was so much worse than I had even imagined. All those little comments, the whispers, the laughter. It was all so mean and so personal. I remember when my fiancé told his mother we were engaged. We were in the car, and he had her on speakerphone. She immediately started going off about how he was marrying a white woman, and how their ancestors would be turning in their graves. That phrase, rolling in their graves, made it feel like I was doing something wrong simply existing. It felt bigger than just her liking, like I was going against generations of tradition. She said she was having a hard time accepting me. She said that if he had to marry a white woman, she wished he had at least chosen someone more homely, and that I was too modern to be a good mother. My fiancé defended me, of course, but she just wouldn't stop. She even said I'll probably raise our grandchildren to be spoiled and disrespectful, unlike children raised in their culture. She's completely unfit to be a mother in our family. That one really hurt. Then later, when we went to visit his parents to start talking about wedding preparations, his father was genuinely happy for us. You could see it in his face. But his mother, she was just as disapproving as ever. While we were there, she started ranting in her native language to my fiancé and his father. I could understand everything now. She was saying she wished my fiancé would reconsider the marriage, that an astrologer had predicted a black hole in the family because of me, and that I was infertile. She started complaining about how many of my white relatives would be at the wedding and suggested cutting people from my guest list. My fiancé refused and they got into a big argument. I just stood there feeling completely crushed, knowing exactly what she was saying. And to top it off, she lied to my father-in-law, saying I had been bragging about how much more money I made than my fiancé, trying to make me look bad. It was all so unfair and so untrue. I thought maybe wedding dress shopping could be a bonding experience, so I invited my future mother-in-law to come with me, my mom, and my sister. I was really hoping it would be a chance for us to connect, to have a nice time together. Turned out to be anything but that. She was awful. She made some sort of negative comment about every single dress I tried on. She'd roll her eyes, make these little passive-aggressive remarks, and just generally make me feel terrible. The worst part was when I found a dress I absolutely loved. I felt beautiful in it. My mom and sister were tearing up, telling me how gorgeous I looked. But my future mother-in-law, she just looked at me and said in her native language that it was hideous. I understood her perfectly. While my mom and sister were gushing over me and how amazing I looked, his mom kept on picking on every dress. It was a stark difference. I was being showered with love, but I could feel daggers being thrown my way. And it wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. She was actively trying to ruin a happy moment for me. At one point, I went to the restroom for a second, and while I was gone, she started mocking my body to my sister, saying how the dresses didn't fit me right and making other nasty comments. I tried to hold it together, but I ended up crying in the dressing room. It wasn't just sadness. It was anger, frustration, everything. It was like realizing that all my efforts to be nice were just being thrown back in my face. It was a moment where I just felt completely defeated. I kept asking myself, why am I even trying? After that day at the dress shop, I just couldn't take it anymore. I knew I couldn't keep letting her treat me this way, but I didn't want to just yell at her or start a fight. I wanted something more impactful. I wanted her to understand how deeply she had hurt me. So, I started thinking about the wedding, and I had this idea. What if I embarrassed her at the wedding in front of everyone? I know it sounds bad, but after everything she's put me through, I felt like I had earned the right to give her a taste of her own medicine. I wanted to put her in her place once and for all. But then I started to second-guess myself. I'm turning to you, Reddit. Would I be the a-hole if I went through with this? Update 1. Wow, thank you all so much for the comments and suggestions. I really appreciate all the support and the humor. It's helped me feel a lot less alone in this situation. I wanted to clarify a few things though, based on some of the comments I've been seeing. First, I want to be absolutely clear that my fiancé has always stood up for me. He's been incredibly supportive from day one. He confronts his mother whenever she's being disrespectful, and he's always there to comfort me when I'm feeling down. He's truly my rock, and I couldn't ask for a better partner. I want everyone to know that he is 100% on my side in all of this. He's not enabling her behavior. He's actively fighting against it. As for my future mother-in-law, well, I think the best way to describe her is that she's just a mean old woman. I don't think she's necessarily racist in a broad sense. I think it's very specifically me that she has a problem with. It's a personal thing. Her wanting her son to marry someone from her own background. I just want to be clear that this is all coming from her. And it's not a reflection of her culture or her community as a whole. I've seen some suggestions about reporting her to the school where she works, but I'm not going to do that. I don't want to destroy her career. I might be angry and hurt, but I don't want to stoop to that level. I think her problem is with me specifically, and it's not fair to punish her professionally for something that's happening in our personal lives. I just want to deal with this situation directly without causing any unnecessary damage. Update 2. Hello again, everyone. I'm actually writing this from my honeymoon. We're happily married. I wanted to give you all an update because I've been getting so many messages and requests. It's been a celebration of our love and, well, let's just say a little bit of sweet revenge. So, the wedding day finally arrived. Everything was beautiful, and I was so happy to be marrying the love of my life. When it came time for speeches, I decided I was going to do something a little different. I started in English, thanking all our friends and relatives for being there, sharing our special day. Then, I switched to my husband's native language. You should have seen the look on everyone's faces, especially my husband's and his family's. They were absolutely shocked. I could see my husband's eyes welling up. I thanked his family in their language for welcoming me, which in my mother-in-law's case was not true at that point, but I was building up to something. I told them that learning their language was my wedding gift to my husband, a way to show him how much I loved him and how much I valued his culture. He was so moved. He came over and kissed me right in the middle of the speech. Then I turned my attention to his father. I thanked him again in his native language for his kindness and his genuine warmth. And then, I turned to my mother-in-law. I thanked her very sarcastically for her unacceptance. I told everyone in her own language about all the insults, all the attempts to exclude me, all the cruel things she had said and done. I told them about the hideous comment she made about my wedding dress, and how she told everyone that I was infertile. I could see her face turning redder and redder. She was clearly mortified. And then I said, I also want to publicly address the false claim my mother-in-law made about me bragging about my income. This was a complete fabrication designed to make me look bad in front of her family. She's absolute trash and a piece of garbage that was picked up from a dumpster. After I addressed the specific things my mother-in-law had done, I broadened the message. Still in her native language, I said that skin color and ethnicity shouldn't matter when it comes to love. I explained how much effort I had put into learning their language and embracing my husband's culture, because it was important to me to be a part of his life in every way. I pointed out how my mother-in-law's behavior, her alienation, and demeaning comments had only served to create a divide. Then, I looked directly at her and very calmly told her that if her behavior continued, she would have absolutely no access to any future children we might have. I made it clear that I wouldn't tolerate my children being exposed to that kind of negativity and prejudice. My husband was incredibly proud of me. He told me later that he had never felt more love for me than in that moment when I stood up for myself and for our future. I just ignored my mother-in-law for the rest of the evening. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of any further reaction. She, on the other hand, was clearly furious. She started arguing with my father-in-law and my husband, and eventually, she stormed off. My husband said he was sure she would think twice before disrespecting me again. But the best part was the reaction from other relatives. So many of them came up to me afterwards, complimenting my language skills, and saying how thoughtful it was of me to learn their language. They told me how much it meant to them. For the first time, I really felt like I belonged. Like I was truly a part of the family. I really enjoyed the rest of the wedding, and I felt a huge sense of empowerment. I believe I made my point, and I got the revenge I felt I needed. I felt like a huge weight had been lifted. Update 3. Hello again, everyone. We got back from our honeymoon, and I had a bunch of voicemails from my mother-in-law. My husband said he would support whatever I decided to do, whether I wanted to call her back or just ignore her completely. Honestly, my first instinct was to ignore the calls. I was still hurt and angry, and I wasn't sure I was ready to talk to her. But after thinking about it for a while, I decided to give her one last chance. I called her back, and we agreed to meet. When I saw her, she seemed different. She was nervous and she actually looked remorseful. And then, for the first time, she officially apologized. She said she had been very angry after the wedding, after my speech, but that she'd had some time to reflect. She said that a lot of relatives had called her out on her behavior, and that it had made her realize how badly she had acted. She admitted that she had been harsh and unfair to me. She acknowledged that I had made a real effort to embrace their culture, learning the language and everything. She didn't specifically apologize for the worst things she'd said, like calling my dress hideous or saying I was infertile. That part was kind of glossed over, which I did notice, but it was a general apology and it seemed sincere. She explained that my husband is her only child, and she's always been very possessive of him. She said she had always pictured him marrying someone from their native country, and that she'd had a hard time accepting me because I was different from what she had envisioned. She said she regretted making me feel so unwelcome, and she promised to be better, to be more accepting. I listened calmly to everything she said, and then I accepted her apology. I told her I wanted to move forward to try to build a better relationship. I appreciated her honesty and her willingness to try to change. I did make it clear that I had certain reservations. It's not like everything is instantly perfect now. This is more of a cautious step forward, and I'm hoping she'll actually change, but I'm not 100% convinced yet. After the apology, we actually started talking, just chatting in her native language. She told me some stories about my husband when he was a little boy, and it felt nice. It felt like we were actually starting to connect, maybe for the first time. I could see that she was trying, and I decided to try too. There were still some small things, though. Like, I noticed she avoided looking me directly in the eye for too long, which made me think she wasn't completely comfortable yet. And then there was this one time when I cooked dinner, and she tried to compliment me, but it still came out a little backhanded. She said, "This dish is actually quite good for a white person's attempt. It's almost as good as how we make it." It was better than an insult, I guess, but it still had that little bit of insult in it. I know this update might not be what everyone was expecting. Some of you probably wanted me to cut her off completely or to continue the feud. But honestly, I feel like I made my point at the wedding. I stood up for myself, and I let her know in front of everyone that her behavior was unacceptable. Right now, what I want more than anything is a drama-free family life. I want to move forward with positivity and give this a real chance to be a fresh start. I think what finally made her change her mind was the reaction from her own family. She said a lot of relatives had called her after the wedding and told her she was in the wrong. I think she finally realized how biased and unfair she had been. But, and this is important, I also know that old habits can be hard to break. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. I'm willing to try. But one wrong move, one return to the old disrespect, and the truce will be over. I won't hesitate to stand up for myself again if I have to. I am hoping for the best. We'll see how it goes. My husband and I deserve a happy and peaceful life, so let's hope for that. So that's where things stand. My mother-in-law and I had a heart-to-heart, and we're ready to try to start fresh. I'll keep you all updated. Update 4. Big news everyone, I'm pregnant. My husband and I are so excited to be starting this new chapter in our lives. We can't wait to meet our little one. And I'm happy to report that things with my mother-in-law have continued to improve. There's been a real positive shift in our relationship. She's much more accepting and kind to me now. She actually spends time with me, offers to help with things, and gives me advice. Some of it unsolicited, of course, but I'll take it. I try to reciprocate, to be understanding and open with her. Both my mom and my mother-in-law have been amazing. They both check on me regularly, making sure I'm doing okay. They've even been working together to help us prepare the baby's nursery. It's so heartwarming to see them bonding like that. It really feels like we're becoming one big happy family. There are still little moments, though, that remind me that things aren't perfect. Like the other day, we were discussing baby names, and I suggested a few that I liked. My mother-in-law scoffed and said, "Those sound so American. Wouldn't you want something a bit more cultured?" It was a small thing disguised as a suggestion, but it still stung a little. It's like those old biases are still there, just under the surface. My husband continues to be incredibly supportive. He's so relieved to see his mother finally making an effort, and he's just as excited about the baby as I am. And my father-in-law, he's been wonderful. He's building a baby rocker for the nursery, and he's already promised to build a treehouse for the little one when they're older. I'm so grateful for his love and support. Overall, things are so much better than they were before. I'm excited about the future, and I'm hopeful that our relationship with my mother-in-law will continue to improve. I'm looking forward to a future filled with love and hopefully no more drama. It really feels like everyone is in a much happier and better place now. We are very excited for the little one.